Hi, Teri here from Stamping Magic. Welcome back to my channel. Today's project is a clean vintage look card. I've used the Very Versailles stamp set together with the woven heirloom stamp set for the sentiment. This card also showcases a technique, and this is embossing with toilet roll, or in fact any sort of tissue. This technique adds a lovely soft texture to your card together with a beautiful deep embossing, and you get little or no cracking with it. And it's something different to try without having to have any special equipment. So let's get started. These are all the measurements you need for all the elements required to create this project. So if you are interested in reproducing it, you can take a screenshot and refer to it later. This technique is very simple to do. Now, I like to use 3 layers of toilet tissue, so I'm pulling off 4 squares. Then I'm going to fold it in such a way that I get 3 layers. This is a 2-ply toilet tissue and it's embossed, and obviously it's got perforation lines as well. Now once you've folded it, you just want to give it a little press down. The embossing and the perforation lines won't show once it's gone through your die cutting machine. Now if you've only got 3-ply toilet tissue, you may need to reduce the layers, but it's something you can try and experiment with. All I need to do now is spritz it lightly on both sides with water. My bottle has a very fine mister on it, which is perfect. You don't want the paper to be saturated, you just want it to be damp. I can then add it to my Parisian Flourish embossing folder. Now this is a 3D folder. It doesn't matter what type you use, this technique will work with all of them. Now when I place it into the folder, I'm just going to center it on the design. And then I can close the folder and run it through my die cutting machine. And this is how it will look once it's been done. You can see that beautiful, deep, perfect embossing. I will cut this down to size later on, but I will need to leave it to dry completely before I do that. Both sides of your paper will be perfect, so if you don't like the embossed side, you can use the debossed side. Now I've got several other samples to show you. This first one was created using the Absolutely Argyle 3D folder. This one was a Country Floral Dynamic Textured folder. The Tufted Dynamic. This is one of our new folders. It's in the Greenery Embossing Folders set, and it's a slimline folder. And then finally the Magnolia 3D embossing folder. I used kitchen roll for this one because I wanted a wider panel. And of course you can watercolour. It's quite difficult to do because the paper is so absorbent, but it can be done. This is the Very Versailles stamp set, and today I'm using the word background image and the leaf image. I'll be using Pool Party ink for the word background and Crumb Cake ink for the leaves. I'll be stamping on a panel of normal weight Very Vanilla card, and I'm going to start by stamping the words twice down the panel. I'll then also stamp the leaves twice down the length of the panel. And before I stamp onto the panel, I'll just stamp off onto some scrap paper so I get a lighter tone of ink. I'm going to stamp the mat for inside the card in much the same way. So starting with the words and Pool Party ink, I'm going to stamp them onto the left-hand side of the panel, and then I'll overstamp these with the leaves and Crumb Cake ink. I'm going to use the woven heirloom stamp set again for the sentiment to create a sympathy card. I'm using normal weight Very Vanilla card for the sentiment and crumb cake ink. And this I'll die cut using one of the Stitched Shapes oval dies, and this is one size down from the largest. I want to create a crumb cake mat to go underneath my sentiment, and I'm using the layering oval dies for this, the third size down. I'm going to cut the excess off from the top and bottom of my panel first of all, and then I can cut the panel down to the size I want. Now I find it easier to use a guillotine for this. You just get a cleaner cut. And as I'm trimming off the sides and the ends, I'm trying to keep the pattern centered on the panel. Once your panel's been trimmed, check it against the crumb cake mat and adjust if necessary. I'm going to add a little crumb cake ink over the surface of my panel just to give it a more vintagey look. Now I want to start off quite light and then I can add more if necessary. So I'm applying it using a sponge dauber. I'm picking up the ink and then lightly rubbing it over the surface of the panel. And you want to be careful when you do this. If you apply too much pressure, you could drag the tissue and tear it. And then finally I'll add some darker colour all the way around the edge. My card base is in Pool Party, and this is half a standard sheet of cardstock, scored in the middle and folded to create a portrait card. Then I've got my panel for the inside, my two main panels for the front of the card, and then I have my stamped vanilla panel together with another Pool Party panel to go underneath it. I've also gone ahead and added dimensionals to the back of my crumb cake sentiment panel. And that's my card complete. Now, if you didn't want to use toilet roll for this technique, you could use paper napkins, kitchen roll, or facial tissue like Kleenex. They'll all work in much the same way. And here's another look at my original card. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Bye for now.